Welcome to the Vegan Family Kitchen podcast. I am thrilled today to have Jean-Philippe Cyr as my guest. He is a vegan chef with a degree in culinary arts and hands-on experience in some of the best restaurants in Quebec. And he also has traveled extensively, so we're going to talk about that a little bit. With his blogs and cookbooks, he's known in the English world as the Buddhist Chef, and some of you with some French abilities may also know him under La Cuisine de Jean-Philippe. He is passionate about sharing everything he's learned to make vegan cooking easy and accessible and tempting dishes for everybody to eat, whether they are omnivores, carnivores, or all vegan. He has also developed, I find it absolutely fascinating, a new line of ready-to-eat products centered on tofu that are available in grocery stores. They're available in Quebec already, and they're going to be rolling out in Ontario. So this is fantastic news. He has just published a new cookbook. It's called The Buddhist Chef's Homestyle Cooking. And we are going to talk all about that today. Hello, Jean-Philippe. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
I have to say, I was reviewing your new cookbook, and one of my party tricks is that I tell people that my dad was the 13th child of 17, and I see that your mother is one of 16. So I feel that maybe there's something in your approach to cooking that might also be related to that, like, big family approach.
I
Do you
think
think there's something like that?
There's something in the water in Quebec. A couple of generations back, there were a huge family. My mother is the eldest of 16. So my uncles and my aunts are 2 years older than I am. And of course, I tried to replicate the sharing side of food, because food is sharing, especially when I was young. Can you imagine Christmas parties with 16 kids? Most of them were married, so I had cousins, and we were 85 at Christmas. And my grandmother was a very good cook, and so is my mother. And they took me under their wings, and I learned how to cook pretty early in my life. I think I have a picture right here. That's me. At the
Oh,
age of, I don't know, maybe I'm 4 years old. I'm already cooking. I'm already doing very healthy recipes, as you can see, with white sugar. But I've learned to cook with my mom. And my mom was a feminist, and she was always telling me, you're not going to depend on a woman to cook your food. So she was like, you're going to learn how to cook, how to do the dishes. So I learned how to cook at a very young age.
that is fantastic. And those were the days when you would go to people's home without calling them first, right? And
Right. People just show up.
exactly.
Just show up.
But there would be something to eat, right? And that's the kind of hospitality that I certainly miss from my childhood. And also living on the west coast of Canada, I think I'm not even sure it ever was a thing here to do
So
that.
there was
And
always some
yeah,
cookies, for example, but homemade cookies. People used to cook a lot more than they do today. So you show up at a place. It's not the same when you have a homemade cookie waiting for you. There are love in it. You take care of people. You care enough to cook cookies. And until last week, I baked cookies for my wife's coworkers. I do yoga. I bring cookies. I don't know if it's because of my upbringing, but I always travel with my cookies.
and it makes people want to go to your house,
Makes them
Oh,
happy.
we go to Jean-Philippe's house, there's going to be cookies. Okay, let's go. That's tempting. Well, let's talk about the Buddhist chef, because that takes us far away from rural Quebec, I'm sure. What's the story behind the Buddhist chef?
A few years back, I got very interested in spirituality and Buddhism, and I read a lot of books, and I would consume everything on YouTube about Buddhism. And also, I had attended a few meditation retreats. One meditation retreat was 10 days silent meditation retreats, which is very hard for me because I like to talk. And I'm not very good at meditating either. So it was very challenging, 10 days. And the food was amazing. It was all vegetarian. And we would look forward to eat the food because we weren't allowed to eat during the afternoon and during the evening. So the last meal would be at noon. So the breakfast the next morning, I mean, the oatmeal was usually oatmeal is not. I always have oatmeal for breakfast on. That way, everything you eat during the day is getting better. But the oatmeal was very good. The recipes on in one of my cookbooks, and from then I would get very interested in Buddhism and the no harm philosophy. But I would walk out of the meditation retreats and I would go to McDonald's, eat a hamburger. I wasn't there yet until the day I was asked, because I was a cook at the time in restaurants. I was cooking in restaurants, and I was asked to cook a lamb for 400 people at a banquet that was taking place at the funeral home on the countryside sometimes. But the only place they can gather 200 people is at the funeral home. So, and this day I made the connection between the animal and the plate. There was 400. I pictured 400 lamb there, and I would see people just like not even finishing their plates. I was like, those animals died for nothing. So I came back home. I told my wife, you know what? We're gonna become vegan. My wife was not into veganism at all. she was she was not only with that she ate, she loved meat, but she was a very picky eater as well. So she was like, what are we gonna eat? What's that? What is vegan? First of all, and what's we're gonna die basically. But after a couple of months of perseverance, and I threatened her to leave her and stuff like that,
The happy days
After
when
crying,
somebody's
and crying, she
yes,
was
when
like,
someone opens their eyes, all of a sudden it creates a rift you
right.
didn't know existed in your relationship, right?
That's right.
It's really
So
hard.
after a couple of months, she became vegan as well, which I'm very glad. And I showed her a couple of videos. When you see the right video at the right moment about animal cruelty, I mean, there's no turning back. So she became vegan, and she was the one who told me you should do video recipes on Facebook. So I started to shoot video recipes. My first video was a soup called, I remember it was called the best soup in the world. That was my first video. And after a day of 24 hours, this video had been seen like 1,000 times. So I was like, wow, 1,000 times. But 500 of those views were my mom, but didn't matter. I shot a few more videos, and then every week I would put out a new vegan recipes, and it just exploded from there.
What year was that?
8 years ago, I guess.
Oh, that's
2008
all. Okay. So is that right
years.
about the time when you became vegan? Like very shortly
Yes,
after?
that's right there. Yeah. I
And
mean,
yeah, no, go
yeah,
ahead.
my mom would cook tofu when I was young, but I don't know what was the problem with tofu in the 80s, but like wasn't the same. They would always put like soy sauce and that's it. Maybe ginger soy sauce. They would marinate it in and put it in the microwave or in the oven. So it was it wasn't very good,
It never crossed my mind to put tofu in the microwave, but maybe
right?
I'll try with some
She had
soy
the
sauce.
she had the cookbook Cooking with Microwave, and she went to a phase where the microwave was very busy at home.
Yes, well, those were the days. Yeah, that's the same time, and we got our first VCR with the wired remote, right?
Oh my God,
They
yes.
came at the same year in
We're the
our
same age, I
household.
guess. The same age.
Yes, absolutely. So you were still working in restaurants at the time, right?
Yeah. At the time, I was still working in restaurants.
But
I
then
was I
eventually
was
you went
cooking.
full time.
I was specializing in meat. I was a grillard, so I was the one cooking meat because you have to have a certain expertise to cook meat, to feel the steak and to see if it's medium rare or. But I couldn't do it anymore, so I quit my job. And my wife she told me like, I'm gonna take care of the bills. Try it if you like to do your recipes and your vegan stuff. And I remember at first people were like, yeah, but I mean, you have a lot of views on YouTube and Facebook. You're very popular, but you don't make any money. I said, yes, but when you try to make money, you don't make money. When you do it for passion, and at one point, you're going to make money. And of course, publisher reached out and we made a cookbook, and now I have 4 cookbooks. So not bad.
It helps, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Such a cool story. So in other, I mean, obviously Buddhist food is vegan, but is there something else from Buddhism that you carry into your food and approach to cooking today?
I mean, Buddhism and veganism share a common value, which is compassion. Compassion towards animals, of course. Also towards the environment, because our meat consumption is very detrimental to the environment. So it goes hand in hand with Buddhism, the no harm, the compassion. And personally, I'm vegan for the animals. I think it's the best reason. But it's not a contest, but they say that people that become vegan for the animals stay vegan longer, according to a survey. But there are no bad reasons to become vegan. Of course, it's gonna help your health. I had the blood drawn 2 weeks ago, and my doctor told me she never saw such good results. And she's been the doctor for like 4 months, 5 months now. So, no, but seriously, she told me that, wow, she was amazed. Not even anemia or anything. She was ready for B12, but everything is fine. I mean, and it's funny because every summer I have to gather vegans together because we don't have friends. We have no friends. So I like to bring people together, and we go camping every summer for 2 years now. It's our third year, and this summer we were 150 vegans in the wood. Not everybody was vegan. One of my friends is not vegan. He was there because he was one of my friends. And the only person that couldn't finish the hike was my friend who was not vegan. Isn't it amazing? Everybody would finish the hike, but my friend who's not vegan. And there was people from every age, and everybody was like, everybody was healthy.
It's so fantastic. I just love to hear this so much. And I think there's so many people that don't even eat 1 or 2 portions of vegetables every day. So no wonder that people who start with the veggies and the
And it's
beans
the
are
fiber.
going to be better.
The problem is
Exactly.
the fiber as well. Most of Canadians don't eat the required, the half of the required fiber intake, daily intake. Most of Canadians. And they say that vegans eat twice as much fiber as general population. I mean, there are a lot of there are no fiber in meat. People
Or
say
in
it.
dairy or in eggs or any of
That's
that.
right. It's just,
Right.
I mean, in vegetables and legumes and beans, and I mean, so healthy.
It's the best. So
Right.
let's talk about what makes a satisfying vegan meal. A lot of what your cookbooks are about and your recipes are about either comfort food or family food. Making vegan food not just healthy, although that's nice, but really feel satisfying. Tell my audience what they can do to make their families or their loved ones meals that they cook for them more satisfying.
I would say that make sure that there are enough protein, because sometimes people forget the protein. They think that vegan, oh, I'm gonna remove the chicken and we're gonna have vegetables and rice. Oh, it's not like that. You have to replace the protein with the vegetable protein, like it's beans or tofu, and make sure there are enough protein, because that's what makes it very satisfying. A lot of fiber, a lot of diversity, a lot of color, and a good sauce. What I learned in my cooking classes because I studied this cooking, the sauce makes the dish. I learned French cuisine with French chefs. And French, they're very good with the sauces. It's always, oh, a piece of meat with the sauce and that's it. So, for example, in my cookbooks, I have tofu, but with mustard cream meat sauce, or red wine sauce, or mushroom sauce, or especially with tofu, you have to help it a little bit, because otherwise it can be bland. But I have a secret as well with tofu. You have to dice it or to slice it and to coat it in cornstarch and to fry it in a little bit of oil. gets crispy, changes the texture. Because sometimes people, they say they don't like tofu. It's not the taste. I mean, it's pretty bland. It's the texture. It tastes like chewy. But if you do it, you coat it in cornstarch, you fry it in little bit of oil. It gets, I mean, it's funny because a woman emailed me. She was like, I never told my kids that I replaced chicken with diced tofu in my chevrolet sauce chicken. And now my daughter is always asking for diced chicken. So she tried my technique of coating it in cornstarch and whatever. And then now everybody eats stuff where they don't even know it. That's another trick. You don't have to tell your family that it's vegan. There are 575 million vegetarians in India. They don't make a big deal every time they eat vegetarian food. It's like, it's a food. It's food. That's it.
I love that. And I'm the only person on the planet, perhaps, who actually loves tofu, like the way it is. But I
Yeah.
think what you're getting at is that there's a difference in texture. There's the crispy outside and the softer inside, and different depending on the type of tofu, the difference will be different.
Right.
That's what makes it, I think, more satisfying. You were talking about diversity, having these different experiences, feelings in your mouth when you eat. Might
And it
that be
has to be,
what's that?
it has to be familiar as well. If you want your family to eat more plant-based diet, don't start with the most spicy curry that they've never tasted. With, you can replace ground beef in your spaghetti sauce with ground tofu, general sauce chicken, you make it with tofu, shepherd's pie with lentils. So it's familiar. They're not scared. They taste it. It tastes good. It's the same spaghetti sauce. It's the same sauce. It's the same recipe. You just replace the meat with tofu. And we always eat the same thing. So Thursday, it's spaghetti. From now on, it's going to be vegan spaghetti. So you have one vegan meal a week already. General sauce tofu, another one. So you don't have to learn 100 recipes. Just learn 10 recipes and it's coming back.
Yes, I'm the one that goes around telling people you only need 5 recipes or maybe
That's right.
3 recipes. And
Yeah.
that doesn't stop me from buying cookbooks.
That's
But
right.
it's interesting to see how many variations you can do on this. But you're
Mhm.
right. People eat the same thing all the time. We
Right.
don't actually want much diversity.
Oh,
And
and
that's
people think that vegan diet, you don't have diversity. It's the standard American diet that's lacking on the diversity. Look at restaurants. It's always burger, pizza, chicken, burger, pizza, chicken. People always eat the same thing. I've never had such a diverse diet in since I became vegan.
we've been talking about tofu, but you mentioned going a little bit more exotic. And I need to ask you about tempeh. And I will quote, this one's in French, but I'm sure you said that in English as well. Couple quotes from your cookbooks. The tempeh is like tofu that has been to college.
Right.
I like that one. But you also say tempeh is like toothpaste. It's good for you, but it's better not to swallow it. And I have to say that in my family, in my kitchen, I love tempeh. If I go to an Indonesian restaurant and I have it there, it's good. There's even a little local tempeh company in Vancouver that has samples at the farmer's market, and I have it there. I'm like, oh, it's so good. I can't make it at home. And once or twice a year, I try. And actually, I used to try once or twice a year. And it would be like, what am I doing? And then my husband is so supportive and always so grateful of all my cooking. And he would make the face of like, oh, thank you for dinner. That clearly says, can we not have tempeh ever again? So please educate me on tempeh. And let's talk about the mixed feelings maybe even you have about tempeh.
They say that never trust someone who says he loves tempeh because what else is he gonna lying about? Actually, almost like you say they like black coffee. Don't trust them because it's not good. So what else are they lying about? But
But you're using tempeh a lot, even in the new book,
I
which
like it.
is
Yeah, I
yeah.
make a lot
So
of
so
jokes about
what is it?
tempeh. Tempeh, I mean, first you have to try different brands of tempeh. It's not tofu, it tastes the same pretty much. But tempeh, you change brands. Some brands they are more like, it has more like a very strong taste. Some are more subtle. You have beans tempeh, you have different type of tempeh. And I went to a couple of high-end restaurants and they have those very fancy tempeh like, pois jaune, yellow peas tempeh, and it's getting very popular in a high-end cuisine now. But at home,
Really?
yes, at home, you have to boil it first. That's my trick. Otherwise, if you have a recipe where it asks that it poaches in liquid, you don't have to boil it. But if you want to grill it on the barbecue or whatever, you have to boil it for 10 minutes, get rid of the water, and you make sure that it's cooked through. Because if you put it on the barbecue for 10 minutes, and if it's not cooked through, raw tempeh is not, cooked tempeh is not good. Imagine raw tempeh. So if the center is still raw, I mean, your guests are never going to come back. But you have to use maple syrup. You have to use liquid smoke. You have to use soy sauce. You have to make it, to be aggressive with that.
But why go through all that trouble? Like,
Because
is it worth it?
I mean, it's a fermented food. It's a fermented food. That's why it looks so gross, because it's fermented. And if you have tried to make tempeh at home, oh my God, if you think that commercial tempeh has a strong taste, try to make it at home. You're going, I mean, I tried twice and never succeed because at one point it ferments too much and it gets the taste just gets too strong. But it's very rich in protein, rich in calcium, rich in fiber. Tofu doesn't have any fiber, but tempeh is made with the whole bean. So it's rich in fiber, very rich in protein, and it's low in calories. It has, I mean, it's a superfood, but maybe sometimes superfood, I mean, they're not super tasty.
What are your favorite ways to use tempeh?
Tempeh bacon with liquid smoke, maple syrup, very easy to make. Slice it thin, and the Dragon Ball on our website with a very good nutritional yeast sauce. It is amazing. This Dragon Ball, wow.
And that's like kind of a golden sauce, right? With the nutritional
Right, that's
yeast
the
and a little
golden
bit of
sauce.
tahini, maybe. I can't remember what's in that
Tahini, you have
recipe.
soy sauce, a lot of nutritional yeast, maple syrup. You can't go wrong with that one. It's this sauce, you can drink it like this. I mean, you can serve it with tofu, with anything. But with tempeh, you have to have a strong tasting sauce to balance tempeh. Otherwise, it's not gonna taste like nothing. If you just take tempeh, you put lemon juice on it. I mean, it's you know
Not
not gonna make
recommended.
it. Try it.
Okay, so I will try again and get back to you
Keep me posted.
about how it goes. We'll see. We'll see. Something that's new in your new cookbook in English is that you're using, I noticed, impossible meat and some vegan cheeses, and that's kind of a new thing because I found in the earlier books it was pretty much everything from scratch, or as you were mentioning, if you're making a vegan bolognese spaghetti sauce, then it would be using lentils, for example. So how did that come about and how's it going with yourself and your audience?
Well, I mean, times are changing. When I became vegan 9 years ago, there was nothing at the supermarket, just plain tofu, couple of vegan cheese, couple of seitan. But nowadays, I mean, you have all of these vegan sausages. I have my own brand of food here in Quebec, which I have smoked tofu, for example, which is very useful. If you have a smoked tofu, it brings flavor to the dish. I have a seitan daily made to make sandwiches. And seitan, it's gluten flour, spices. That's about it. So it's very rich in protein, low in fat, very healthy. And okay, Beyond Meat and Impossible Burger is not as healthy as tofu, that's for sure. But it's better for the environment, that's for sure. It generates 85% less greenhouse gas emissions. produce than beef. So, and let's not compare, you know, Beyond Meat and an apple, for example. Let's compare Beyond Meat with ground beef. And if you look at the impact on the environmental impact of beef, it's a disaster for the environment. It's not healthier than beef, that's for sure. But it's a healthier choice for the environment and for the animals, of course. And I mean, why not, as a vegan, go to the supermarket and buy ground beef or product that looks like chicken to prepare a recipe. I mean, those guys who cook who write cookbooks with chicken, you don't ask them to prepare their chicken
To
or
grow the
to
chicken, to
grow
raise the
the
chicken.
chicken. They go to the supermarket and they buy chicken. So why not in my cookbook include a recipe with a vegan cheese, for example? I mean, what's wrong with grilling a lasagna with vegan cheese? You don't have to make your cheese. I have a recipe for cheese. If you want to make your cheese, I have a lot of recipes for cheese that are very good on YouTube and everywhere on my cookbooks. But if you're busy, weeknights, vegan cheese, it's a very good option. Very good better for the animals.
So I was aware that you had ready to eat dishes that you've created, and I've seen them in grocery stores when I visited in Quebec. I wasn't aware of all the other stuff that you've been working on. So tell me a little bit what it's like to create those products, to get them in stores. What's your experience been like?
It's challenging because there's a difference between making one portion of something and making 5,000 portions of something. So you have to make sure that it's gonna be good even the 500th time you make it. And you have to be, in my case, clean label. Means that I don't want to add preservatives and coloring and food. It has to be quite simple. Like it's the recipes. Those are the recipes that are on my cookbooks. I go there with those developers and I cook my recipes and I say, look at this. That's the recipes. That's what it tastes like. And of course, they're going to change the cornstarch for another cornstarch probably, but the basically it's the same recipe. And if you work on tofu, for example, I'm working on smoked tofu, maple smoked tofu. And it's always like I have 10 tofus, more maple, less maple, more salt, less salt, just to decide the quantity of maple. It's very challenging because you don't want to have too much, don't want to have too less, but it's, I mean, it's very challenging, but it's a passion for me because now I feel like I change people's lives at another level because they show up at the grocery store instead of picking chicken or whatever. They take tofu, they cook with my tofu or with my seitan, and that's convenient because people, they like to cook, but they don't like to spend 2 hours in the kitchen, on the nights. So it has to be easy to go vegan, and it's getting easier.
What's been the experience of working with like the big grocery store owners, like the big chains? Like how easy were they to convince that this is something that was needed?
It's them that called me in the first place.
I love it.
So they approached me because they were like, oh, veganism, wow, it's getting very popular. Who's the chef, the vegan chef? Okay, let's call him. So they called me, and I was like, of course, I would like to. Making prêt à manger, ready to eat, and so now they call me regularly, and they're like, "Do we have another project? You have another? Do why don't you make pizza? Why don't you make sandwiches? Why don't you make?" So it's all on. It takes a long time to develop a product, but they're very enthusiastic and they're very nice. IGA, so base, and they came to they're fans because they came to my book launch here in Quebec, and they make me sign their books and stuff. So they're very nice people. It's important for me to work with nice people. That's, I mean, at my age, I don't want to work with people that I hate. So now I choose carefully who I'm working with.
I love this. And I like to think that when you're changing minds at that level, like when the grocery store executives are starting to think, well, actually, so these are selling, that's good. It's making a profit. So that's a good thing. But that they personally start to like this, I think it's moving the movement forward. So
Yes, and they very eager to promote it. They put me on television, my products on television when they're for Christmas, and they really highlight vegan products, which is a very good thing, I think, because there are a lot of products in supermarkets, you know.
that's great news and it warms my heart. So I'm going to
Mhm.
take that home and be happy about it. But there's something else I have to. This book is priceless for anybody with some command of French and an appreciation for Quebecois humor. I think it's a must have. But and you've been I mean, Quebec has a big culture of humor, and you've been uh, a very strong participant in that. But so I have to quote first of all. I mean, there's a centerfold. Is there a
Yes, there's
centerfold in the
always a
translated
centerfold.
version of this? I have to move over here so people can see. I mean, who wouldn't want to buy this cookbook? But so there's this
This,
excellent quote here that says vegan means no meat, no fish, no eggs, no dairy products, and no friends. Tell me a little bit more about that.
you know that I have a conference in French, and I do it like for banks and online and for. And at one point, they're like, "Is he serious or is he not serious with the no friends?" And I'm always joking around with the vegan stereotype, and that's the self-deprecating. And people like this. When you think of a vegan, even myself, I think as a vegan, I think as someone angry, someone who's going to try to shame you, and and
Righteous, self-righteous.
that's right. So when you show up and you're like joking around and you make fun of yourself, people think it's funny, and they're like, "Oh my god, okay, it's cool, okay, it's nice." So we can let me check your recipes, and people like to laugh. I mean, it's vegan, not vegan, whatever. People like to laugh. If it's a good joke, you're gonna laugh about it.
But every joke has a kernel of truth, one might say. And I mean, I've personally experienced because as we were talking at the very beginning, good food has been such a big family tradition and having friends over, sharing meals. Even I think at the beginning of my vegan journey, my husband freaked out, kind of like your wife, because food was the thing we had in common. Like we both, like he also comes from a tradition, not such big families, but a tradition of sharing really good meals. His mom is a super cook. So I was like, oh my God, like, what are we going to do? This is going to inconvenience other people, fearing conflict and like social discomfort. And even to this day, I mean, COVID has kind of thrown a wrench into all of my hosting plans. And we're just even now slowly getting better at it. But it can still be kind of awkward when you want to invite friends over for dinner and they know you're vegan and they're like, oh, what's going to happen? So, do you have any tips to get over that?
I try to veganize popular dish. What I miss the most is fried calamari. When I wasn't vegan, I would always ask if there was on fried calamaris on the menu, I would order it. And now I make fried calamari with hearts of palm. And it's been so long since I had real fried calamari that I think it tastes the same. But I always do it with my wife because my wife, she didn't chose this lifestyle. She chose it after me. So she's like, "Oh, I missed the time when I was eating fish and blah, blah, blah." She wouldn't eat fish anymore, of course, but she was like, "I wish I could just had tried more dishes before I became vegan and blah, blah, blah." And then I make fish and chips, vegan fish and chips. And I try to make the same dishes, but vegan version. And most of the times it's as good as the original. It's
Or
crazy.
better?
Or better, hopefully.
That's just fantastic. So, you're going to try to match your guests' culinary preferences with the veganized version. Is that what you like to do?
Yes, and in my cookbooks, okay, I have simple recipes, but make sure that you can serve those recipes when you have guests over. That's very important for me. The taste is there. I'm not a nutritionist, so I worked in restaurants, so I'm very aware of it has to taste good. It has to taste good. Even tofu, even tempeh, it has to taste good if it's possible. So that's
It is possible. It is possible to make tofu and tempeh taste good. And I encourage everyone to look at your cookbook. And as I was saying earlier, I'm the person who goes around telling folks, you do not need recipes to cook. You just need to know how to make soup and stir fries and things. And certainly for weeknights, that's the case. But in my off moments, I also tell people maybe on Saturday night, pick out a cookbook, invite a couple friends, and try cooking a few of the different recipes. And I strongly encourage you to look out for Jean-Philippe's new book. It just came out and it is called The Buddhist Chef's Homestyle Cooking. You have some others. Oh, there it is. There we go. Yes. Thank
homestyle
you.
cooking.
It's a lovely book and lots of inspiring recipes in there to not even just accommodate, but even wow your friends with
Right.
some really awesome, wholesome food that will come from a place of love when you share it with them.
Sure.
Thank you so much for being here, Jean-Philippe. Thank
Thank
you.
you so much.